started off working undercover cases. I helped create a drug task force. We're located right between, wedged between Bridgewater, with Bridgewater State and the Bridgewater Prison Complex in Brockton. City of Champion, about 100,000. Brockton is, very blue-collar city, but like any other urban, city in the country, it's got its fair share of problems. Brockton is our hub as far as our drug sources are concerned. So I've been intimately working with Brockton Detectives, State Police for years. And I say in full disclosure because now I get up in front and I do these presentations about, as a drug cop, I arrested everyone. I was involved in wiretap cases, task force cases, all the federal agencies. So it definitely has been a shift in training and philosophy and mission for me personally and then as a department, because now what we're doing is, we've changed. What's that? You can grab hold of the mic. Oh, I do have to hold the mic. Also for the cable. Okay. Is it on? Okay, so for the cable. So it's been a shift in philosophy. Before I get to what I'm going to talk about, our drop-in center, in 2011, our opioid crisis had, hit like it had hit everywhere across the country. We're a small community, 15,000 people, but, we've had, overdoses in double digits, where years ago, 20 years ago, we'd have a couple overdoses every year. As we got into the 2000s, it started getting, increasing, 10, 15, 20. In 2015, we had 35 overdoses in my town, 5 deaths. Last year, and this is without being proactive, we had 34 overdoses and 2 deaths. So, and I'll touch on some of the stats because I really think it's important that whatever you're involved in, you're tracking data, because there's so much out there that people talk about data. I'm going to argue, or I'd advocate, that we've got some real accurate data in the Bridgewaters and Whitman. A lot of what we do in our area is all regional. Drug task force work, the 3 Bridgewaters, 3 separate towns, separate town governments in Whitman. We've collaborated for about 18 years on our drug task force. We've collaborated on other police initiatives, and it made sense, and now we're doing it on our outreach work with the opioids. So Susan Silver, she was a mom in town. Her son had been dealing through the opioid crisis, had struggled for years. He struggled to a point where he finally was able to get into recovery after what Susan would tell you, about 8 or 10 years of, a disaster for her family. But he did get into recovery, and what she wanted to do is give back to her community. So like many of these coalitions, she went to the police chief in our town, and the chief, she said, I want to do something to give back to the community. So what they did is they came up with the idea of EB Hope. The chief at the time, my predecessor, John Cowan, brought me in as a drug, with my drug background, and said, would you like to get involved in this? Change in philosophy, change in mission, but it made sense because at that time, 2011, we were in the throes of this Oxycontin shift to heroin at that time. We dealt with the oxys during the early 2000s, then 2010 to 2012, we saw a dramatic shift, to heroin. So they formed a 501c3. And what we did is we reached out to all the key stakeholders. In EB Hope, our coalition, we have police, we have fire, we have the superintendent and her team. We have our selectmen involved. We have our council on aging, which I'm going to talk about, is huge. Board of Health, the Old Colony Y. So we reached out and brought in to our coalition every person, the business community. We have a lot of great businesses who have helped us with donations. And then our biggest piece is the recovery community. We have a team of people in recovery, moms of people suffering, dads, and then we have we call them our recovery angels, and I'll touch on what they do in our organization, because to me, they're the nuts and bolts of our operation. So again, I was a drug investigator. So from 2011 through 2015, we did a lot of coalition work, public speakers, in front of the students, the school, the parents. We had nights where we'd have 150 parents show up, and then we'd have days where we'd have, I've done presentations in front of like 4 people. And for those that are involved in the coalition work, it gets frustrating because you've got a great mission, you're trying to do the right thing, and getting people to come out is a struggle. And the one thing that I've learned doing this work is the squeaky wheel hits the oil. You just got to keep on battling through. And as I touch on our drop-in center, we've had some highs and we've had our share of lows. So in the police department, we were doing Narcan early on. Brockton and Quincy was first, Brockton was second, and then we were right there for the small communities right behind them. At the time, John Cowan, my boss, said to the troops, I want Narcan in the cruisers. We didn't have to bargain it because at the time,
He just said, I'm putting it in there, you can grieve it if you want, and then it went in pretty smooth. At the time, some of that buy-in, we had someone in our department who had a child suffering. And what my boss did was said, would you not use Narcan on this, our officer's son? Of course we would. Well, you're going to do it for everyone. So, we've been pretty proactive. So we've been doing Narcan for about 4 years now. And, again, my philosophy in Narcan, it saves lives. It gives someone another chance to get in recovery. And the lessons that we're learning is it takes 6, 8, 10. There's no number, but I know people who get into recovery after 10 attempts, 12 attempts. On the way down, I was just speaking to a counselor down at NORCAP, a friend of my, a real good friend of our family's son. I've been trying to help for a couple of years. He's been struggling back and forth. This is his second attempt in the last 2 weeks. He left after 4 days. Now he's back in. The council just told me today that he's going into the transitional, service. So it's a good sign. So what we did in EB Hope is we got together with what's called the Brockton Area Opioid Awareness Prevention Coalition. Say that 5 times quickly. So our key person is Hillary Dubois. Hillary is the regional director. It formerly was referred to as the Brockton Mayor's Opioid Task Force. It now encompasses all of the region: Whitman, Hanson, Rockland, Abington, East Bridgewater, Bridgewater, West Bridgewater's jumping on now. So our approach, through the coalition is to share resources. The MOPSI funding, the SAPSI funding, and the DCF, the Drug Free Community Grant money, all goes through the coalition, and then Hillary and her team, bring that out to our region. What we've really stressed and what I recommend is you partner up with your neighboring communities. Because what I see happening right now is everyone's fighting for dollars, and there aren't a lot of dollars out there. And if everyone says, oh, we're going to do our own little thing over here, I see that not being very efficient. What we've been able to do is we've brought everyone and got the buy-in from the other chiefs and the other towns. Say, listen, don't try to recreate something. Let's form something together and then all partner and push everything towards that, whatever that initiative is that you come up with. Again, the DA's been a huge advocate for us, Plymouth County DA Tim Cruz. He's helped fund us. We actually now have 2 professors, Roger Williams University and Stonehill College. They've helped us to create a model, a pilot database that we're using on the EB Hope side, and we're getting ready to roll out very soon county-wide with all the police departments on an overdose database, a real-time database that I've been doing for about 2+ years. But now we're getting the buy-in from the other chiefs. So we've had that regional approach. Just to give you a picture of what we're dealing with. So East Bridgewater is about 15,000. West Bridgewater is about 7,000 residents. Bridgewater is the biggest, about 25,000. And then Whitman's around 14,000, 15,000. So a total of about 65,000 residents. And again, we collaborate. So these numbers are combined of those 4 communities. We've since added, which isn't in this data right here, Rockland and Abington have now jumped on board. So now we have a 6-town database that's now working. So these are our overdoses. So 2015, we had 130 and 17 fatalities. That's only 4 small communities. The numbers are staggering. I've never seen these numbers. Motor vehicle fatals in those same years, we didn't even have one in East Bridgewater in 2015. Motor vehicle fatals and handgun deaths combined are now surpassed nationally by, overdoses. So, these numbers, they're consistent. 2016, the numbers are pretty steady, 127. But the key thing for us is, look, the fatals have dropped significantly. And I would argue that because we're getting Narcan in the hands of a lot of other people other than public safety at our drop-in center, which I'll touch on, and because we're being proactive, I'd like to think, and I'm hoping, and I think our data will show over the longer period of time, that that's helping keep those numbers down. 2017, we're already up to 5, but it's actually more. In the last 5 days, we had 2 in East Bridgewater, 2 in West Bridgewater, 1 in Bridgewater, and 1 in Whitman. So we've had 6 in the last 6 days. The fentanyl and the newer version of fentanyl, which is called carfentanil, which is probably here, but we don't know about it yet. I work intimately with the Brockton Hospital, South Shore Hospital. They're our partners, and we share what information they're allowed to. And all of the 6 overdoses I just talked about, none of them tested positive for opioids. But Narcan only works on opioids. So what it tells us and tells the doctors is that it's a newer version of this fentanyl that they can't test for just yet. So they haven't caught up. Most of the fentanyl's coming in from China. It's chemically made. There's some mad scientists out there that are, getting paid, probably big dollars to make this chemical analog. Carfentanil is a rhinoceros animal tranquilizer. and it's hitting the Midwest right now, Indiana, Ohio. You know, if it's here, which it probably is, you know, we're probably looking at another spike is the best information that we're hearing. And by spike, I mean in Cincinnati, Ohio, they had 170 overdoses in 1 week, or one eight-day period. I think they had 23 deaths. So we're tracking the data. I think it's real important because everyone talks about, our per capita numbers. Our data is real time. The overdose happens, it gets submitted to our database, and it's updated daily. A lot of the databases out there, it's updated annually, and then the medical examiner hasn't ruled. A lot of our overdoses, we use police common sense. Is this an overdose or not? It's pretty easy to determine that. Traditionally, across the state, you can see how the overdoses have gone up. 2015, the last available data, 16 is not done yet. It was almost 1,800. It's probably higher because there's a lot of pending deaths still at the ME's office. 2016 will probably surpass 18, almost up to 2,000 deaths in the state. So you can see in 2000, it was 355. And if you look here, and I'm trying to look down here, you guys are Cape at, what does it be, Barnstable? So you guys are, on the lower end, which is good, but then combine that with your Dukes, right? Not Dukes, where's the other one? Nantucket. So you guys, I know, have the similar problem, some more than others, but nationally, we're at the top of the list. We're in that top 5 category, top 8 category. I was down in New Jersey speaking to a group 2 weeks ago, and they have 562 police departments. We have 320, and we have more deaths in New Jersey. The metropolitan area around New York City. Right there, that red dot, that is a hotspot of the overdoses across the state, and that's Brockton, and that's across the state. So Brockton, Dr. Dan Muse, who's I do a lot of presentations with, he will tell you this year they had 660 overdoses through Brockton Hospital, 660. He will tell you that half of those are not from Brockton. They're from East Bridgewater, they're from Rockland. The problem with the state data is they're not tracking that piece on that end. They're not saying, hey, the person overdosed, came to Brockton, but it's really from East Bridgewater. So that's where our database is showing where they're from, where they overdosed, where they were transported to. And I think that's really critical as we move forward, trying to really assess where the problem is. Because they overdosed in Brockton at the hospital, that's not where the problem is. The problem's back in the little suburban towns a lot of the times. All right, so our age category, a lot of the state data will say 30 to 39 is the age category of risk. Our data shows 50% of them 20 to 29 years old. The scary thing there, even more so than that, or what's unique is we've got 8% that are from age 50 to 79. And I know the stats are out there that the 65 and older, the average person has 5 or more prescription drugs, for that person. So we're seeing that community too. So now it's wide ranging. Overdose by sex, it's traditionally 2 to 1 right now, and still, but that female group is rising. Where our overdose victims live, it's our own people overdose in our own communities. Now, there's definitely some overflow. You can see there, Brockton people 5, Rockland 5. So we're tracking all that. And then with this new database we're going to be rolling out countywide, is we'll be able to stop missing we'll be able to connect some of the dots and where we're missing. Because I know I probably had 30 people from East Bridgewater that overdosed at Brockton that I don't even know about. Because they're not calling us saying, hey, so-and-so overdosed, he was brought in here or overdosed in Brockton. We want to know that because what we're doing now is we're knocking on the door saying, hey, we want to help you. And I'm going to touch on that very shortly. Narcan, so this is the 4 communities right now, 166 saves in just over 2 years. Can you imagine what the 24 death, or it's actually 25 death number would have been if we didn't have Narcan? It'd be even, our numbers are staggering. It would be, just completely ridiculous. So we track it by month. We look for trends. You can see there's some high periods, low periods, but it's pretty steady. And I think it's going to be steady, unfortunately, for a while. So the opioid crisis, it was a game changer in 2015 for us in law enforcement. At the time, it was the former Gloucester chief and then the Arlington police chief, Fred Ryan. They stepped outside the box and said, we're going to do something different. Instead of just trying to arrest away the problem, we're going to try to take a different approach. And it was controversial, especially in law enforcement. Police chiefs, police officers, drug officers said, hey, that's not what we do. We arrest people. That's not our job. But it opened up my eyes, and at the time when the Gloucester Initiative started, our coalition said to basically look to me and said, hey, and the chief, what are we doing? Let's do what they're doing. So I reached out to Gloucester, I reached out to Arlington, and I looked at both of their models, and then I brought it back to our group, and then what we did is we came up with our own model. Gloucester, you can walk into their police station, though they've changed how they do it. You can walk into the police station and they'll get you help. Very labor intensive at the police station. Arlington actually has a clinician embedded in the department, and what they do is they do outreach. They go, they know who the at-risk population is from the police reports, who the people that are using, and they'll go to those families and those users and say, hey, we want to try to help you. So Chief Cowan and I at the time, we liked both models, but not one more than another, or not all one or the other. We combined them. So what we said is we didn't want it to be at the police station. We want it to be a community solution. So on our board, we have a pastor at a church. The pastor said if we build something, create something, we can host it at the church. To me, what's more inviting than having people walk into a church looking for help instead of coming into the police station? So we combined a little bit of Gloucester, a little bit of Arlington, and then we created our own business plan. And what we're going to call it, and what we call it now is the drop-in center. Twice a month at the church, we gather all of the treatment and recovery partners that we know about. We're not recreating the wheel. We're not claiming to be treatment providers. We just bring those people there and say, we're going to introduce and market this resource, all your resources, to the at-risk population and the public at large. And our idea behind it was, you know, as an open house job fair style setting, you can come to the gymnasium, very relaxing atmosphere. We keep on updating the model. Now we have some privacy cubicles for people that want privacy. We always have a free meal of the night, someone donates. Coffee, drinks. There's a sitting area that, you know, our recovery angels can mentor people that are struggling. We have a licensed clinician there that is actually vetting people, and we bring people right into treatment from the drop-in center. And again, we knew that the at-risk population was who we needed to touch, and it's not just the active users. What we've learned and what our data shows, 2/3 of our visitors are mums and dads, family members looking for help. Because for years, we would go to houses on overdoses. I'm sure it's the same thing here in Mashpee. We'd go there and say, hey, we don't know what to tell you. You can get a Section 35, because we didn't have any training. We really didn't have anything else other than go get a court order. What this has done for us in law enforcement is now it's got us changing how we, you know, think. It changes how, you know, now the resources. Now we're learning, what does High Point offer? What does Gosnod offer? What can health, you know, South Bay Community Service do for you? So we've now had to kind of, you know, create a whole new initiative within law enforcement on what substance use disorder is and then how people can help. And again, the stigma is one of those things that we're constantly trying to help, you know, battle through. So again, I really stress, whatever you do, don't try to recreate the wheel. What I see right now kind of evolving is everyone wants to do something, but they all want to do their own thing and not partner up. And again, I see that having a negative effect. It's going to turn people away. There's going to be a lot of wasted resources, wasted time, you know, and that's why Chief Poteri, Mike Poteri down in Plymouth, and I, we've partnered up because we're both doing, you know, we're both doing some different models, but now we've combined. We've copied what Plymouth is doing, they're copying us, and now we're trying to spread that throughout the county. And so far, we've had a real positive effect. So at the drop-in center, we have a licensed clinician through the Brockton Area Multi-Services Incorporated Whitman Counseling Center. We have all of the 5 major treatment partners, High Point, Gosnell, AdCare, Spectrum Healthcare, and NorCap Foxborough. So they're all our partners. If they're not there every session, we have them on a phone call away. So we've formed those partnerships. The Brockton Area Coalition, you know, is actively there. We have inpatient, outpatient, you know, resources, more. We have AA, NA. Learn to Cope is the biggest resource that we have there. As soon as a mom or dad come in, we send them right over to the Learn to Cope table, you know, because we know that they're the experts, not us. BAMSI, we do Narcan training on site, and Narcan is disseminated at the drop-in. BAMSI can disseminate it, Learn to Cope can under the statute. And the Brockton Area Coalition team is also allowed to do the Narcan training, and then they can get it disseminated. So we have, I think we've trained over 190 people in Narcan training, and I'll touch on that. Section 35, we have an attorney that will come on, you know, he comes every couple sessions, and then he's always a phone call away for us. Al-Anon, Teen Challenge of Brockton, Health Imperatives in Brockton, you know, Brockton, they help, you know, children who are exposed to trauma, i.e. overdoses, witnessing mom and dad overdosing. Stairway to Recovery is part of the Brockton Champion Plan, which is one of our partners. They're similar to the Gloucester Initiative. Again, we do the Narcan. We have a pastor for clergy, faith-based requests. We have our own Hidden in Plain Sight exhibit, Magnolia New Beginnings. Our recovery angels are our key. So Sean is from East Bridgewater. He doesn't have a problem me sharing because him and I go out and do work together all the time. Sean's in recovery 12, he just hit his 12th year this year. So Sean and his team can give that peer-to-peer mentoring that is so important for someone suffering. I haven't been there, so I can't tell someone who's actively suffering from SUDS how they feel. Sean can. Sean can then tell them, hey, what you're trying to do is probably not going to work because I've been there, done it. You might want to try this. That peer-to-peer mentoring has really become a critical piece to what we're doing. We form partnerships with probation. The Family Probate Court had just reached out to us. They want to partner up with us because we're all seeing the same types of people suffering. So instead of them trying to create their own model, we can just make referrals back and forth to one another, which is what we're doing. South Shore Hospital, huge partner. They just made a $5,000 donation to us last week. They brought their mobile sim lab, which was only geared for law enforcement and public safety training. Because when we met with them about a year ago, I said, geez, what could we do with your mobile sim lab? Because they were talking about it. I said, have you ever thought about using it for civilians? And they said no. But in that lab, it's a mannequin. They remotely control it. They can make it exhibit the signs and symptoms of an overdose. So you get real, close to real real life training, a scenario. And they brought it out. The night they brought it out in the summer, we had 62 people showed up at the drop-in to get training. And then we just did it again on the coldest night of the year, and we still had 15 people got the training. So to date, South Shore Hospital alone, we've done 75 people. Plus, we've got over 120 people that we do on a regular basis. Most people that come in, moms and dads, they want the Narcan training, and they want to leave with Narcan. One of the stories I'll share with you, and I talk quick, so if I'm going too quick, you can slow me down. But a mom came in. Her son or daughter was suffering. She got the Narcan training. A month later, she came back, and I saw her talking to the BAMSI girl who does the training, who's in recovery herself, and the mother started crying. I said, geez, everything all right? She goes, yeah, I just want to thank Erica because she saved my daughter's life. Because I did the Narcan training here, I got the Narcan from the drop-in, and then last week, my daughter was overdosed, and I knew what to do. So we're starting to hear those stories, that qualitative data. It's not quantitative, it's qualitative, and we're starting to hear those. Brockton Signature Healthcare, big partner. South Bay Community Services, they do a lot of outpatient services. They're a great partner. Another one is Bay State Community Services. This video is about 5 minutes. I'll let it roll for a couple minutes, and then we'll push on. This is about the drop-in, though.
And everyone we remember, even if we don't know them by name, they're not statistics. They're not numbers. They're people. People valued by God and by us.
Hope, to me, is a community solution to a community problem. We're a grassroots organization that involves everyone in our community from different sectors, the private sector, from town government, from people that just have loved ones suffering from addiction. It's a grassroots community group whose goal is to help our fellow residents and partners and neighbors.
First and foremost, I think what EB Hope is doing for their community and anybody suffering from addiction and families, they're desperate and don't know where to turn. So by coming to this program 2 times a month, or opening it up to the public, allows them to be able to have access to resources that most people don't know what's available to them.
To EB Hope to help offer our services to the people of the area and to let people know there's different alternative ways that they can get through opiate addiction. We are a faith-based 15-month program, residential, and the residents stay there for the entire term.
I'm going to push along just because I want to get through the presentation. But so that was the church. That was another drop-in center. Right now, we've added more tables. This last session, we were so busy because we had like 4 or 5 different active users at the same time trying to get help. They were triaging. We were talking about now where we're going to put some more tables because we have more partners. We started with like 3 or 4 different tables the first couple of nights in November 15. Now we've got 20 to 30 partners that are there regularly. Some come every other session, you know, and again, one of the things I'll harken on is that, you know, those organizations that already exist, it's taxing for them to go out and do these drop-in center nights or these community nights. So keep that in mind when you're trying to formulate whatever you decide to do, or if you're going to do something, that if they're expected to do this in each town, they're not going to be able to do it. They've actually come to me and said, listen, Plymouth's doing the drop-in, you guys are, but if someone else tries to keep on replicating this, we're just not going to be able to go to all of these. They just don't have the resources. So that's why I really stress the regional approach. In that, you saw some police in uniform. That was Marlboro Hudson. They've come down. They've opened their own drop-in center. There's another one going up. I think they went up last week in Avon, Holbrook, and Randolph. The Norfolk County DA's office had reached out to us. I've met with them a couple times. So we've been sharing the model with anyone. I've been down to Martha's Vineyard. We've been all over the place. You know, they're doing something a little bit different, but the same idea of community coalition, you know, collaboration. So South Shore Hospital, that's their mobile sim lab. In it, you can see that's the mannequin. So you've got civilians that are actually looking at that mannequin, and then they control it. They can make it, you know, it can actually vomit, it can sweat, it can give all the signs and symptoms of an actual overdose. So you're getting real life training, you know, and you know, they video record it, so it was very innovative. I'm going to pass over. That's the video that South Shore Hospital did on that night. And again, just last week, they made us a $5,000 donation. You know, they're a great partner right now for us. Council on Aging, what we have found, 25% of our visitors are age 50 and older. You know, and if you had told me when we started this that would be the case, I wouldn't have thought that. But what it is it's grandmothers helping their adult children who are suffering from SUDS, or taking care of their grandkids because their kids are in detox rehab or just out in the street, or their grandkids are suffering from substance use disorders. I've had nights there at the drop-in when grandmother has brought in her adult son and grandson who are both needed treatment. And we're seeing that regularly. We're having 72, 75-year-old women doing Narcan training, leaving there with Narcan, which, you know, and I even, when I talked to them, I said, did you ever think that this was, you know, and absolutely not. It would be the last thing on their mind. You know, especially it's a different generation right now that we're dealing with. So the lessons we're learning by from scratch. You know, we're finding that, you know, every week we pick up something new. These are all the different organizations that have come down to us. I've talked to the U.S. Attorney in West Virginia. They're looking to utilize a little bit of Arlington Gloucester's and our models down there. They have the highest per capita death rate from overdoses in the country right now. I was shocked. The U.S. Attorney taking the lead on something like that, which is very, you know, proactive, progressive, innovative. And, you know, and like when I met him, you know, basically said, you know, we have to do something. You know, I was fortunate, recently was named to a law enforcement, the PARI Law Enforcement Council. PARI is the Police Addiction Assisted Recovery Initiative. The 7 chiefs of police from across the country that, you know, we advocate, you know, for the mission of trying to, you know, provide people with opportunity to get into treatment, to get into recovery, you know, talking about Narcan training. Through PARI, and I recommend, you know, if you guys aren't a member, it's worth doing because it doesn't cost anything for the department. But we just got basically a free supply of 104 milligram units of Narcan. It's about worth $8,000 through the PARI Foundation. They gave it to us through a grant process. They gave us initially $5,000 in startup money to help our drop-in center. So they've been a huge resource. They're advocating. I went down to Washington, D.C. this summer at the White House and the Capitol advocating for the $1.1 billion bill that ultimately it got knocked down, but ultimately has, you know, since passed and hopefully is going to be coming out to us in the foreseeable future across the country. It's still a work in progress. Marketing, that's the biggest problem. You know, and I'm learning, you know, as we go, you know, word of mouth has been our number one. The best marketing tactic was using the reverse 911 system. The only problem is it caused some negative, you know, feedback. People are complaining. You know, what we would do through the Sheriff's Department is we put out a robocall the day of or the day before the drop-in. EB Hope Drop-In Center tomorrow night, 5 to 9. That was the number one reason on our exit survey. People said they came to the drop-in center. Plymouth is doing it now, and it's their number one marketing tactic. It works. The problem is you're going to get complaints, because most of the complaints are going to be usually from old elderly people who, it's not really, I think it's more generational, but they're like, I don't have a problem. I don't want you to call me. What we found, the biggest piece of the complaints came from moms and dads of people who had lost a loved one. Every time that phone rang, it brought back that memory, and in my mind, probably, geez, they're helping these people now. Why weren't they there for my loved one? So those are the things that we're dealing with. We have gotten away from using that. Our numbers have dipped down a little bit, but our number one marketing tactic right now is the overdose home follow-up visits. We have a recovery coach, a police officer, and soon to be a clinician. We go knocking on the door of the homes where people overdose, because we're collecting that data, and we're saying, hey, tomorrow night, like the team's out today, they're in 3 teams in 6 towns, knocking on doors. We have packets. EB Hope drop-in centers open tomorrow night. If you need help, active user, we can help you right now or help you tomorrow get you into treatment. Mom or dad, we can get you resources. We can get you Narcan. So we're finding right now, last week, or the last session, I think we had 14 people. 10 of the 14 came because of the overdose follow-up visits. So we're now changing. That's going to be our priority right now. Plymouth is now adopting that as well because it works. I hate to talk about marketing, but you have to market your brand, whatever you're going to do, because if you don't, people aren't going to come. I was talking to someone in marketing that says, anytime you buy a product, you have seen that product advertised at least 3 times before you actually go to buy it. Same thing with this drop-in center. We can't knock on the door one time. What we're seeing is 2nd, 3rd, 4th visit to the home or the phone call. Now it kicks in, and that's what moms and dads are telling us at the drop-in center. Geez, I heard about you guys. I didn't know if this was legit or not. I didn't know if this was just some, public relations thing. And then we've got people coming in, as a police chief, but a former drug cop. I've had parents of kids that I put in prison thanking me now, saying, geez, I can't believe you're doing this. For us, it's, to me in police, it's a community policing 101. It's a no-brainer. It really is. So we have our database. We've got a pretty, comprehensive database. We're tracking everything. This is basically on a screen of an iPad. It's all uploaded to our secure web database remotely from the drop-in center. And now we can spin out all kinds of reports. So we're tracking everything from how did you hear about the drop-in center to, are you looking for help for yourself or a loved one, getting their information. What's your insurance? Because if we're going to help you or we're going to refer you to help, we're going to need to know those things. Then we do a kind of a triage. Did you see our clinician? Did you get Narcan? Are you a veteran that needs services? Are you looking to get placement today? And if so, which of our partners are you going to get placed with, or are you looking to get placed with? Because this is important, too, to send back to our partners saying, hey, High Point, you guys got 40 placements from EB Hope. So it helps on the buy-in, too, on that other end. And then we do an exit survey. And the data, like I said, the data is so crucial because everyone wants to see numbers. Grants, foundations, the state. And I do presentations with the Department of Public Health recently, Bureau of Substance Abuse Services that we've talked to. And, we're doing some innovative work here, and we're looking for support. We've been doing this basically on a shoestring budget with nothing. We're all volunteer. The only person that's paid is the clinician because under her license, she has to have that, the backup for her, legality-wise. So these are our visitors. 143 are active users. The biggest number to me that's important, the 273, family members and friends. We're educating them so they can go home, and now they're armed with information on how to help their son or daughter, which traditionally we haven't helped them do that, other than saying, here's a Section 35 order. So we're tracking everything and anything. We have an age category. You can see there, 134 people are between the ages of 50 and 89. We've had one person, or 2 people in their 80s come into the drop-in center, one, looking for help. We track where they're from. It's obviously the biggest numbers are our own backyard, but you can see our neighboring towns have a double-digit numbers. Brockton, even Brockton with the Champion Plan, we still, we make referrals back and forth with Brockton. We've had people come from all across the state. And again, we're cops. We're not marketing experts. So one of the things that we've done is we're partnering. We have a partnership with Stonehill College, their Center for Nonprofit Management. They're now taking us on as a project. So now we have resources. We have an We hope intern. We're going through our second one, or starting our second one tomorrow. We're partnering with Bridgewater State University on some stuff. You know, we're leveraging every partnership and organization that we can. And again, for the data, I'll just scroll through this. You know, it's pretty, you know, detailed. Again, on the outreach initiatives, the overdose follow-up visits, and now this Plymouth County-wide model that we're really stressing. We're trying to get our fellow chiefs to buy in, Chief Boterian and I, and say, listen, let's commit to doing something together, consistent, best practices, and not competing with one another, especially when it comes down to the grant money. Our thought process is if we have one collaboration, Plymouth County, and then we can expand it to our partners, we're all going to be, you know, we're going to be more efficient. We're not going to tax these organizations as much, and then we're going to be open ourselves up to more opportunities down the road. And I'll just finish up with basically, you know, the PARI group I talked about. You know, I'm a big advocate on trying to educate myself. American Pain and Dreamland are the two best books that I've found to talk about the opioid crisis. Dreamland is the best one. The author of Dreamland is going to be the guest speaker at the National RX and Heroin Summit this year, this April down in Atlanta. I went to that summit last year, and we expect to be going back there this year. It definitely really shows you the whole kit and caboodle from 1996, Purdue Pharma, you know, putting out that false, you know, representation that you're not going to become addicted to opioids to the current trends today. And with that, that's my kind of my presentation here. I know I wanted to keep it within the time limit, so I don't know if you have any questions or.
I have two questions. One, you have so much great information on your slides. I'm wondering if you could share them with high school.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
Gail.
Yep. I can send the PowerPoint down, definitely.
That would be great. And that would be great. And then my second question is, with the database that you created and its lifetime for overdose and using Narcan, is that also used by the fire department and paramedics?
Well, we do it jointly. We warehouse it. It's because the law enforcement, we developed it, we maintain it. So one of the things that we're dealing with is the privacy, you know, so we've got the security and privacy issues. So I can share certain information with the hospitals and or the fire department. We are there at the overdoses. So this is a police and fire database. We're not missing any of the overdoses. Every overdose in our town, police are there. And we're almost always there first. I think probably 90% of them, 95, maybe even 99% of them. So yes, we do partner with them, but we actually get more of the information. If they had someone walking in the fire station, they'll call us and let us know. So we have that partnership with them. Yes.
Dreamland, what was the other book?
American Pain. That talks about the initial creators of the OxyContin strip mall. Oh boy, I'm having yes, the pill mills down in Florida. It was two brothers and a friend from the Palm Beach area that they created basically the model. It actually started with a doctor in Ohio, Portsmouth, Ohio. But then when he trained all these doctors on how to, you know, create these pill mills, these are the two down in Florida or the three that actually ran with it, you know, and really created that firestorm down in Florida.
I have a question. When you talk about the regionalization and the taxing of resources, be it the speakers or the tables or that sort of thing, but then I also think about accessibility. I mean, we have folks, we have food pantries and stuff that people from Mashpee can't get to Falmouth to the food pantry, let alone a drop-in center.
Local taxi company, partner up with a taxi company, bus company. Those are some of the things we've told people, we'll come get you. You know, I've sent cruises to people's houses to bring them to the drop-in center. You know, and those are some valid points because this model may not work everywhere. Like I can tell you, there's other areas they've struggled with it. You know, one of the regions that started it, you know, they didn't have a team of recovery angels. And when they first started it, they had it was basically in a clinician's, you know, business. It didn't work for them, but even as they were kind of laying out their plan, I had said, you know, geez, that probably isn't going to be the best fit. So whatever fits down here, this is a different dynamic down the Cape. So, you know, just with those points, there may be, you know, maybe you make it a mobile one. What we've talked about is making it rove around the county. But the only problem with that, when you're trying to market a brand or trying to get people to know, you know, we still have people coming in after 16 months saying, geez, I didn't know you guys are here. And we're putting this out on every bit of media, every news release we can do, and people still don't know about the potential to get these resources. So, those are definitely valid points and things to consider. It's not a one fit, that's going to work for all. You have to tweak it to work for your community. It is working for us in Plymouth on that regional. I mean, the numbers show. We've had people from Rockland, 22 people from Rockland come down. So, again, but we're a little, closer communities, more accessible, Route 18, Route 28, Brockton type of thing. So that's definitely something to consider. We put, so we got some grant money through the Drug-Free Communities Grant and through the Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition Grant and the MOPSI Grant, Mass Abuse Opioid Prevention Coalitions. So, but that's not a lot, and that's through the coalition. What we've done is, we've put out an appeal funding letter to the community. We've just raised about $10,000 in the last couple of months. South Shore Hospital was $5,000. A couple of local businesses each gave $1,500. And that money goes into the coalition. We're a 501c3, so we can accept the donations. It's not a police, that's why it's completely outside the department. This is not a police-led operation. It's a community coalition. I'm a member, an executive board member with EB Hope as a volunteer. So those are things to consider. It's where we struggle. We've actually put in for a bunch of grants and not gotten them. And I think we're pretty innovative right now. And a lot of what the foundations have said to us is, well, what about sustainability? Can you show sustainability? I said, we just created this from nowhere. How am I going to show sustainability? We've only been doing this, and like I throw up right back at them. You tell me what to do, what works, because everyone has the answers. Tell me what works, and we'll do that right now. But no one can answer that because no one knows. We've actually seen the treatment partners, really reach out to us now to say, geez, we're starting to see success from your initiative, where 16 months ago they really questioned what our intentions were. It's taken a lot of time. We've taken our lumps. I feel like, people have taken some shots at us because we're trying to do the right thing. And like, well, you don't know what you're doing. Well, tell me what to do. Show me where to do it. And I even argue that with the state. Give me a model and we'll follow it.
Do you vet the people that come in?
Absolutely. So we have an executive board of 8 people. There's at least 2 recovery angels on the executive board. We have, the executive board is very diverse. We have a couple of people from the town, people in recovery, people who have, experience. And then Hillary Dubois is our expert. So she formerly worked for DPH. She is the Brockton Area Opioid Coalition Director, and she also is the Director of Programs for High Point Treatment Center. So we rely on her as, for the feedback. Hey, this group is looking to have a table at our drop-in. You can't just show up at the drop-in and have a table. We go through a process. We have you come down, we meet you, then we go back to the E-board, we do some vetting through Hillary. What do you know about this organization? We've had organizations that we haven't had in, that we've told that, I don't think it's a fit. We actually had one organization that we told that to about a year ago because, they wanted a certain, hey, this is the only thing that works. Well, you can't sit at our tables because we have Teen Challenge sitting next to High Point, next to Gosnell, next to Aki. If you can't get along with our partners and respect, what works, 12 steps versus, Suboxone treatment versus methadone versus Vivitrol, if you can't respect any of those and all of them, then we're not going to have you as part of our group. So you really need an expert. Hillary is our expert in her team. She gets paid through High Point Treatment Center in the Brockton, in the state funding. There's some money through, they're on the state contract list, High Point Treatment Center, like Gosnell is, I'm sure down this way more so, although, High Point and Plymouth. So they are partners with the state, and there's regional coalitions, clusters all around. I don't know, do you guys have a regional coalition down the Cape? Okay, so you probably have a Hillary Dubois in your group. Up in Situate, there's a person, I'm trying to think of her name, oh boy, Anne-Marie Galvin. She's Hillary's counterpart, so those are great resources. So we tap into them because they know. I don't know. We have one partnership with a group down in Florida. We've sent about 5 people down to Satori Waters. I went and saw the facility myself when I was in Florida, and then they came up and did a presentation of the board. Florida's a disaster. But there's some great facilities down there. They started the OxyContin problem in this country, and now they're taking advantage of it through the recovery sober homes. There's a big investigation going on right now. People are going to jail, hopefully. But Satori Waters, top notch. our board said, absolutely, we'll partner with them. But that's only an option, like, there's some great places in this area, you know.
And we're also a Masphee partner, we're a collaborative partner.
Okay, so you already have access to some of that right now, and so that's what I would say is tap into that, you know. That's you? Okay, so so I would rely on her, and then if she feels like, hey, we need, you know, some people come in and talk about some of these partnerships, you know, she can access, you know, these professionals and say, what do you know about this organization? A lot of it is, you know, due diligence, but it's, you know, it's word of mouth too, but talking to the experts. We're not experts. We don't claim to be. All right. Well, like I said,
Doing great work.
well, appreciate it. So I'll definitely send the PowerPoint, and if there's anything, you know, on the law enforcement end, like I said, Chief Portieri and I, we're rolling some stuff out that, you know, we were actually we're getting the chiefs to sign commitment letters. We commit to put a designee, and I find that, and I've already gotten them back in, so I feel like that's real powerful. If your chief is on board things and the leadership's on board, I really think that's where we've seen success. Where some of these other partnerships haven't had as much success, I don't know that they've had the buy-in.
I'm wondering, because I work along the Cape in different coalitions in different towns, and I'm wondering if you'd be interested in coming back.
Sure. Yeah, I would stress to you is to get on the same page with the other coalitions, because if everyone tries to do their own thing, I can tell you right now, it's going to fail. You know, and again, we're not recreating the wheel. I say we're facilitators. So I definitely would do that and strongly recommend it, because those are the conversations we're having in Plymouth County right now.
We have a huge regional coalition
Yeah.
that's so dynamic and wonderful, and I'm just thinking ahead of, this would be a really great presentation.
Absolutely. Yep. Like I said, I can talk fast, so.
You did great. So excited.
Well, thank you for your time and good luck.